On September 11, 2025, the Council of Ministers in Burkina Faso, led by Captain Ibrahim Traoré, made an announcement that has since been described as one of the boldest Pan-African decisions in recent memory. The government declared that it was abolishing visa fees for citizens of all 54 African countries. From Cairo to Cape Town, from Dar to Dar es Salaam, Africans could now enter Burkina Faso without paying a single cent in visa charges. The decision does not mean borders have vanished entirely. Travelers are still required to apply for a visa online before traveling, and approval is still necessary. But by removing the financial burden, the government has lifted what was perhaps the most immediate and discouraging barrier to African travelers' money. For a continent where a significant percentage of the population lives on less than $5 a day, visa fees often turn travels into impossibilities. For ordinary Africans, this could mean new opportunities. Students wanting to attend academic conferences, traders hoping to sell goods across borders, and tourists seeking cultural exchange now find the pathway easier. Consider a young Ghanaian filmmaker who wants to attend the FESPACO Film Festival in Ouagadougou, one of Africa's biggest cultural events. Before, visa costs might have discouraged them. Now the path is clear. The scrapping of fees makes cultural participation more accessible and democratizes opportunities that were once limited to elites. The message here is powerful. Burkina Faso is saying you belong here. This policy is more than a bureaucratic adjustment. It is a gesture of belonging, an invitation to Africans everywhere to see Burkina Faso not as a foreign land, but as part of their continental home. The real power of this decision lies in its symbolism. For generations, African thinkers, activists, and leaders have dreamed of a continent without borders, an Africa united by culture, trade, and common destiny, rather than divided by artificial colonial boundaries. Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, once declared, "The independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked with the total liberation of the African continent." Burkina Faso's move echoes that sentiment decades later. Colonial borders have long been a painful reality drawn up during the Berlin Conference of 1884–85. These lines carved the continent into pieces without consideration for cultural, ethnic, or linguistic ties. Families were split, trade routes severed, and communities forced apart. Today, the remnants of that colonial act still haunt Africa. Africans often need visas to visit their own neighbors, and in some cases, it's cheaper and easier to fly to Paris than to cross into a nearby African capital. By scrapping visa fees, Burkina Faso is swinging a hammer at this colonial wall. It is not the complete demolition of borders, but it is a powerful crack in the structure. Symbolically, the act says we will not be prisoners of colonial maps any longer. We will decide for ourselves how to relate to one another as Africans. At a time when Africa faces instability, coups, and foreign interference, symbolism matters. Even if the immediate economic benefits are limited, the psychological impact is profound. It reminds Africans that unity is possible, that borders can be softened, and that Pan-Africanism is not just a nostalgic dream from the 1960s, but a living, breathing project. Burkina Faso, a country often overlooked on the global stage, has reignited the conversation on African unity. Beyond symbolism, the decision carries significant economic weight. Visa fees have long been a double-edged sword. While they generate revenue for governments, they also discourage travelers. For countries struggling to grow their economies, the loss of potential trade and tourism far outweighs the short-term gains of visa fees. Take tourism as an example. Burkina Faso may not yet be a global tourist hotspot like Kenya's safari parks or Morocco's deserts, but it has treasures of its own. The country is home to FESPACO, Africa's largest film festival, which attracts artists and filmmakers from across the continent. It boasts rich cultural traditions, music festivals, and historical landmarks. By removing visa fees, Burkina Faso has made it easier for Africans to attend these events, boosting visitor numbers and injecting money into local businesses. Hotels, taxi drivers, restaurants, artisans, and performers all benefit when more visitors arrive. The benefits extend to trade. Africa is home to millions of small-scale entrepreneurs who survive by crossing borders to buy and sell goods. For many of them, visa fees represent a crippling burden. Imagine a trader from Côte d'Ivoire who sells textiles in Ouagadougou. A $50 or $100 visa fee can erase their profit margin. Removing this cost encourages more trade, strengthens cross-border business ties, and builds economic resilience at the grassroots level. Diaspora Africans could also play a role. Many African Americans, Afro-Caribbeans, and Africans living abroad want to reconnect with the continent. Policies like this one make Burkina Faso a more appealing destination for cultural tourism and heritage exploration. While the nation still faces infrastructure and security challenges, even modest increases in tourism and trade could boost local economies in meaningful ways. The diplomatic impact of Burkina Faso's move cannot be overstated. Earlier in 2025, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger shocked the world by withdrawing from ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States. Critics predicted that leaving ECOWAS would isolate these countries, cutting them off from vital regional cooperation. But Burkina Faso's decision to scrap visa fees tells a different story. Isolation is not the plan. Openness is by welcoming Africans fee-free. Burkina Faso is sending a clear message to the continent. We may have left ECOWAS, but we remain deeply African. It is an assertion of sovereignty signaling that integration does not have to flow only through regional blocs or Western-backed institutions. Instead, Burkina Faso is taking a centered approach to diplomacy, building ties directly with African citizens rather than through bureaucratic structures. This is soft power at work. Governments can sign treaties, but ordinary people build relationships. When Africans travel to Burkina Faso freely, they create cultural and economic connections that last far beyond political agreements. It is a form of diplomacy rooted in human exchange rather than political formalities. Burkina Faso may lack the economic clout of Nigeria or South Africa, but it is wielding symbolic influence that resonates across the continent. Diplomatically, this decision also challenges the narrative pushed by Western critics who portray the country as closed off and authoritarian. By opening its doors to Africans, Burkina Faso is reframing its image not as a pariah state, but as a leader in Pan-African unity. This is a subtle but powerful repositioning on the global stage. Burkina Faso is not the first African nation to pursue visa openness. Seychelles has long been a pioneer offering visa-free entry to all African citizens. In 2017, Benin followed with a similar policy, and soon after the Gambia joined the list. Rwanda's announcement in 2023 that all Africans could enter visa-free was particularly significant as it was paired with a strong tourism strategy and world-class infrastructure. Compared to these nations, Burkina Faso's policy is more limited. It removes the cost but not the process. Africans will still need to apply online before traveling, which means the red tape remains. Critics argue this weakens the impact. Rwanda, for example, allows Africans to arrive at the airport and enter without paperwork. Burkina Faso, by contrast, is not yet ready to go that far, but the context is crucial. Seychelles and Benin are relatively stable. Rwanda has invested heavily in its tourism sector, branding itself as a continental hub. Burkina Faso, by contrast, is under military rule, battling jihadist insurgencies and facing international sanctions. It does not have the resources to go fully vising fees as a first step. A manageable, low-risk move that signals openness without overwhelming the government's capacity. In this sense, Burkina Faso's policy is not about competing with Rwanda or Seychelles, but about joining the larger movement. It shows that even countries under pressure can choose openness. And it raises the question if Burkina Faso, with all its challenges, can take this step. What excuse do larger, wealthier African nations have for keeping visa barriers in place? What makes this decision truly remarkable is the context in which it was made. Burkina Faso has been under military rule since 2022, after a coup led by Captain Ibrahim Traoré. The nation faces one of the most severe jihadist insurgencies in West Africa, with large swaths of its territory unstable and millions of citizens displaced. Sanctions from ECOWAS and Western countries have further strained the economy. Given this backdrop, Most observers expected Burkina Faso to turn inward to close itself off, focus on security, and prioritize internal survival. Instead, the government did the opposite. It made a bold statement of openness. This is not just a policy but a political message. Burkina Faso refuses to be defined solely by conflict. It wants to be seen as a country of vision, not just violence. This decision is also an act of defiance by extending a hand of unity to Africans while under international pressure. Burkina Faso is asserting its independence. It is saying we do not need Western approval to define our policies. We do not need ECOWAS to dictate our integration. We are African first. This boldness fits with Captain Traoré's broader image as a young visionary leader who is challenging both domestic insurgency and external pressure. Of course, challenges remain. Without stability and infrastructure, the practical benefits of fee removal may be limited. Tourists will hesitate to visit areas plagued by violence, and traders may avoid insecure roads, but in some ways that is secondary. The decision is not only about immediate results but about setting a direction. It is about declaring that even amid turmoil, the dream of Pan-African unity is alive. The final and perhaps most important dimension of Burkina Faso's decision is its contribution to the dream of a borderless Africa. The African Union's Agenda 2063 outlines a vision of an African passport and the free movement of people across the continent. But progress has been painfully slow. Nearly a decade after the AU launched its symbolic African passport in 2016, only diplomats and AU officials carry it. Ordinary Africans still face endless red tape and costs. Burkina Faso's move is a reminder that change does not have to wait for 2063. Individual countries can act now. Sovereignty means making decisions independently, and Burkina Faso is exercising that sovereignty to challenge the absurdity of Africa's current travel system. Africans can often travel more easily to Europe than to another African nation. This reality undermines integration and makes colonial-era divisions stronger than ever. The true revolution will come if bigger nations follow suit. Imagine Nigeria, Africa's most populous nation, announcing visa-free entry for Africans. Imagine South Africa, the continent's industrial powerhouse, tearing down its visa barriers. Imagine Egypt, a gateway between Africa and the Middle East, opening its doors. Each of these moves would create a domino effect, forcing others to join, and together they would transform Africa into a truly borderless continent. Burkina Faso may not have the power of Nigeria or South Africa, but it has done something arguably more powerful. It has set an example. It has reminded Africa that unity does not require waiting for grand summits or AU protocols. It can begin with a single bold decision, and once one country takes a step, others are challenged to follow. That is the spark of real revolution. Burkina Faso's decision to scrap visa fees for Africans is about more than travel. It is about history, identity, economics, diplomacy, and vision. It is a reminder that borders are not natural. They are man-made. And because they are man-made, they can be reimagined. The policy may face challenges, and its benefits may not be immediate. But in the bigger picture, it matters. It matters because it tells Africans that unity is possible. It matters because it challenges the colonial legacy that still divides the continent. And it matters because it sparks a question. If Burkina Faso can do it, why not others? The dream of a borderless Africa has always felt distant, locked away in speeches and manifestos. But perhaps thanks to decisions like this one, that dream is closer than we